Let us start with the first chapter in geography, that is resources and development. In today's class, we are going to discuss about resources and classification of resources. First and foremost, let us see what is a resource. Now, you can see on the board everything living or non-living. Now, living things, examples, plants, animals, humans, and non-living things like soil, water, air, available in our environment, which can be used to satisfy our needs, is called a resource. So is this clear, students? Everything which includes living as well as non-living available in our environment, which can be used to satisfy our needs, is called a resource. Now, in order for a substance to become a resource, it is very important that it should satisfy these three conditions. You can see the first, it should be economically feasible. Now, economically feasible here means that you should not put in too much money to make it a resource. For example, now suppose if you have to provide electricity to a large building, we cannot use solar energy as a resource. Now this is because solar panels have silver lining in it. Now this will make it very expensive and this resource cannot be used easily. So it is not economically feasible. Second is the resource should be culturally acceptable. For example, animals are killed for trade. Now this is a resource for somebody, but such things are not culturally acceptable in our country. So such resources cannot be considered. Now coming to the third, a resource should be technologically accessible. Now what is the meaning of this? Let us take one example. Now, to generate hydroelectricity. Now what is hydroelectricity? Electricity generated from water. To generate hydroelectricity, we require dams, shafts and generators. Now without this, water cannot be a resource. So technology also is an important fact. So we can say everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is economically feasible, culturally acceptable and technologically accessible, can be termed as a resource. Now let us discuss the classification of resources. Now, classification of resources are done on 4 bases. The first 2 are on the basis of origin and on the basis of exhaustibility. Now, on the basis of origin, resources can be broadly classified into 2 categories: biotic and abiotic resources. On the basis of exhaustibility, it can be again classified into two categories: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Whereas on the basis of ownership, resources can be categorized into four: individual, community, national, and international. And on the basis of status of development, resources can be classified into three categories: potential, developed stock, and reserves. So let us discuss each classification of resources. So let us discuss the classification of resources in detail. Now, coming to the first, classification of resources on the basis of origin. Now, resources can be broadly classified into two categories: abiotic resources and biotic resources. Now, what are abiotic resources? Abiotic resources are those which are composed of non-living things. Now, what are these non-living things? For example, rocks, minerals, air, water, soil, all are non-living things. So what is the definition of abiotic resources? Abiotic resources are all those things which are composed of non-living things such as rocks, minerals, air, water, and soil. Okay. Now coming to biotic resources. Biotic resources. Now, bio means life. So, biotic resources are those which are obtained from biosphere and have life. For example, human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, livestock, etc. So, we can say biotic resources are those which are obtained from biosphere and have life, such as human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, livestock, etc. This is it for today, and in the next class we will be discussing classification of resources on the basis of exhaustibility, ownership, and status of development.